Why are multiple choice exams difficult? Most multiple choice questions are short and quick, so a multiple choice exam can cover a lot of ground. Most standardized tests have time limits, which adds an extra layer of pressure to an already stressful situation. Many test designers think that it's too easy to guess multiple choice questions, and they may well be right, so they intentionally make the questions tricky, hoping to confuse the test taker. No bluffing. With an essay test, you can try to bluff your way through it, and you may well get some extra points. Not so with multiple choice. The answer is either right or wrong. Multiple choice tests tend to throw the questions out at random in no particular order. This means there are more challenges because you have to be familiar with a wider range of material than on other kinds of exams. You need to know specific vocabulary, rules, names, and dates. But there are advantages as well. Each question has a lower point value. You can afford to miss a few and you're still okay. If you're doing a fill-in-the-blank or an essay test, you have to rely totally on memory to get the answer. With a multiple choice exam, you know that the correct answer is somewhere in the question. You just have to decide which one it is. Often, seeing the right answer will trigger your memory and you'll recognize it instantly. But your professor knows this too. To neutralize this advantage, they include what are called distractors. This is a possible answer that is designed to look like the correct answer, but is in fact wrong. We'll talk a lot more about this later. Here's an example. Who posted 95 Theses on a church wall? If you vaguely remembered the name Martin Luther, you might be tempted to choose the distractor and incorrect choice number 1, Martin Luther King. So who does well on multiple choice exams? There's no getting around it that the best way to do it to get a good mark on an exam is to know your stuff. You have to know your material in order to do well. We can teach you strategies that will increase your mark by a few percent, or you can get a slightly higher mark by using specific strategies and a step-by-step approach, but at the end of the day, you do have to know your stuff. People who stay calm do well on multiple choice exams. Test anxiety is a major cause of poor performance on an exam, and we'll have lots of videos on test anxiety soon. People who use logic rather than instinct or emotion tend to do well on multiple choice exams. People who have a system do well on multiple choice exams. This entire course focuses on a systematic, step-by-step strategy for answering multiple choice questions. Follow the strategy and you can increase your score. Randomly guess and you will probably be disappointed. Maybe you have another system and that's great, as long as you're using some kind of systematic approach. Preparing for a multiple choice exam. Preparing for a multiple choice exam is not all that different from preparing for other types of tests. Studying the material, rehearsing the material, learning how to take a test, keeping a positive attitude, preparing yourself mentally. Learning how to take a test is something we'll cover in another video. For now, we're going to look at the first two, studying the material and rehearsing the material. By studying the material, we're talking about reading the material that will be covered on the exam with the goal of trying to retain as much of it as you can. Here are a few points to keep in mind. Start early. Multiple choice exams tend to throw in a lot of details and facts. It's almost impossible to retain a huge amount of material if you just study the night before. If you learn a small amount every day over the course of a few weeks or months, and if you allow time for review, you'll find that you retain much more. Understand what is emphasized. If your professor repeats certain concepts over and over, that should set alarm bells ringing. Whatever is repeated over and over in class will most likely be on the exam. Often professors will actually tell you what's going to be on the exam. If your professor tells you something that's going to be on the exam, it's time to get out your highlighter and make absolutely sure that you understand that material. Textbooks are another resource. Usually they have a review section, and if you notice that certain points are emphasized in the review section, then chances are your professor is going to think that those points are important as well, and chances are that they'll be on the exam. Pay attention to fundamental concepts. Not only will these likely to be on the exam, but when you understand how facts, concepts, and events are related, you will remember them better. Studies show that unrelated facts have no meaning and are usually forgotten. Two facts that are related by a concept or a relationship are more likely to be remembered and understood. Make your own lists. Whether you're studying a textbook or a test preparation guide, study guide, or your class notes, make your own lists and tables of the important material. At the end of every section of your book, try to summarize the key concepts, names, dates, and facts. If you can't summarize it, you need to reread it. Regularly summarize your class notes and review the summary regularly. Every time you encounter new vocabulary that seems to be important, make sure you don't just proceed on until you've learned what that term means. And don't just memorize the definition that's given in the book. It's very common for multiple choice tests to rephrase things in such a way that demands that you actually know what it means, and you haven't just memorized the exact phrasing of the definition. Rehearsing the material. Make your own flashcards. Flashcards are one of the best ways to study. They really work. You can do them in odd moments. They're just a really great way to learn things really quickly. Test yourself. Find books and test yourself on the review questions. Make up your own questions and then give yourself a little homemade test. Get practice tests. Generally, practice tests are available from the library or from your professor. Don't miss this opportunity. Practice tests are probably the most effective way to increase your score.